The latest aero bike from Canyon is here, and it looks exactly the same as the old one. But it does have some secrets if you look closely. Welcome to First Look, the series where we check out new and interesting pieces of tech and give you the rundown on things that actually matter. The bike we have here is an Aeroad CF SLX 8 Di2. It's got Shimano Ultegra 12 speed with a power meter, Canyon's new, even more adjustable CP0048-01 handlebar, which I believe they call their PACE system. DT Swiss Arc 1400 50mm deep carbon wheels, Continental GP5000s set up tubeless, Salitalia SLR Boost Superflow carbon saddle, and the bike, exactly how we have it set up here, retails for €6,499. As always, we'll be switching out the wheel set for most of our outdoor testing to our house wheels, which are aluminium, mid-range, and will give us a better idea of how the frame in isolation rides. They've made a surprising amount of changes, considering it looks the same on the surface. They've covered up the ends of the through axle holes, so the frame and fork is now smooth. They've altered the shape of the head tube, the top tube, the seat post, the fork, the seat stays, and the chain stays. There's now a little paint protector thing on the end of the fork, so when you're putting a wheel in quickly, you're not going to chip the paint as easily. And you can now adjust the width of the handlebar even more than the old adjustable Canyon handlebar. And you can even switch out the drops to a new Aero drop shape, which is slightly flared, much narrower, and apparently can save you up to 14 watts. They claim this is now the fastest bike in the pro peloton, based on their yaw angles and their testing. Big claim, make of that what you will.
I guess one of the unique things about this bike, at least at the higher end of the price point, is this is how everyone is going to receive their bike. It's going to show up in a box and you have to build it yourself. Canyon are very good at designing products that are efficient. You know, like the box is smaller, it comes with a really good pack and instructions, it's nearly completely built when it's arrived, but you're going to have to do it yourself or get a mate to do it. I suppose you could ask a bike shop. I don't know if what would happen if you did say, "Will you build my Canyon for me?" They'd probably say yes and just charge you the right amount for it. But ultimately, you know, this is part of the process.
They sent bar tape. There's already bar tape on the bars. Oh, I know why. They sent us extra handlebars that plug into your handlebars. These are the Aero version of the PACE bar. PACE. Performance, aerodynamic, capability, eccentric. Something like that. We've received these because of YouTube. You don't get these when you buy the bike. I think you choose between the two types though. It's either the normal handlebar or the Aero ones.
It's all the rage for super narrow bars, isn't it?
I'm fast as boy.
Last time I saw this was on the Scots, where you can basically build the whole bike with a T25. Every single bolt on this bike is Torx. So, well, that's an exaggeration. Almost every bolt on this bike is a Torx. So there's a little thing, which is probably in the fork at the moment, which is a lever with a Torx thing on the end, and you can do the stem, the bars, the seat post, the weird handlebar bolts, and it all fits snugly into your through axle and stays there with magnetic power. All bikes should have this. We should dock points for any bikes that don't have one of these.
So I've got a theory. The box the Canyon comes in is significantly smaller than any box I've seen a new bike arrive in before. It's almost small. Obviously, with Canyon being a direct consumer brand, they want to have a really efficient shipping process, and their warehouse must be astronomically huge. So saving a bit of space, I imagine, is really important to them. My theory is that they've actually designed the handlebar to fold down really small and neat so that their box is smaller. Does that make it a worse bar or a better product? I don't know. I'm actually going to ask Canyon if they have actually done it for this reason.
Canyon got back to us and said, the bar was designed to give the riders the options of bar width, allowing them to adjust the width to their preference. This is a real benefit on smaller sizes. For example, you can set the bar at 370mm on a size small and below. This should mean smaller riders are able to feel comfortable on their bikes. As well as the adjustability, the removable wings mean the bike is easier to travel with. It does also mean that the bikes can arrive with a headset set up completely, giving the rider one less thing to worry about when building up the bike.
Does the design of the bar make it less safe? More likely to break? I do not know. However, if I'm doing a big old monster sprint, it's probably going to be in the back of my mind that maybe they're not as strong. I'll caveat that with, I am confident that they wouldn't sell a product that they were concerned about the safety of.
Maybe. I'm so out of breath. This is the hardest we've ever cycled home, which I think says a lot about how fun this bike is to ride. Like, it's not nice to ride, it's not comfortable. It is aggressive. You just want to sprint the whole time, which is a plus for some people. I'm having great fun. Brakes are the wrong way around, so I nearly died a couple of times. But other than that, the ride's been wicked. To caveat that, I ride my brakes Euro and they sent it British. So not Canyon's fault. It is so stiff, it just wants to fly. And this isn't even the highest level of carbon fiber. This is the CF SLX. This frame set has 4 different specs and it goes right down to the slightly more affordable versions as well with SRAM Rival.
So the bike has arrived pre-taped, set to 39.5 centimeter center to center handlebar width. It also has the option of going bigger to 42 or smaller to 37 centimeter bars. And you just need to adjust the taping, cut a bit off or add a bit on if you need to. In theory, I think that's pretty cool. It's pretty sick that you can tweak your position. You might find that 39.5 works better than 37 or 42 or whatever. So there is something nice about the option to try different widths on one bar, which is something which has always been a challenge with the bike industry. The amount of, if you've been riding bikes for a long time, I will nearly guarantee you will have a bucket or a crate somewhere full of random bars and stems and saddles and seat posts and things that you've tried over the years to get your fit dialed in. So there is something that I like about the adjustability of this setup. We're now going to weigh the bike. It's got a Garmin mount on the front and 2 bottle cages.
Does it feel heavy?
It does. 7.6 kilos. 7.59 if you're that way inclined. The claimed weight for a medium is 7.45 kilograms. I'm assuming the difference is sealant in the tyres maybe?
It's worth mentioning the super high-end CFR version of this bike, the frame set weighs 2,070 grams. Well, they claim it does, and that includes frame, fork, seat post, cockpit, and headset.
As soon as our ride started to pick up the elevation, it started to feel a bit sluggish. I don't want to blame the bike, it could just be me. Maybe I'm a bit tired today. Maybe I'm fortunate enough that my own bike is just very nimble at climbing. Ultimately, I was like looking for excuses for why it was feeling slow. We'll blame me. For the benefit of the doubt, we'll blame me. But it might be the bike. Maybe we'll blame the bike. I'm going to blame the bike.
Livability, which might not be a real word. It's the bit of the video where we take apart the seat post and the handlebars and see how much of a pain in the arse it is. Apparently, you can adjust the height of your handlebars without chopping any steerers. I'm removing my 15mm. You reckon you can absolutely slam this without any adjustment? No way. As if. I mean, they weren't lying. You can slam this without cutting anything off because there's so much extra space inside the back of the stem there. What is this one tiny bolt actually clamping to? If you were going to pack this bike away, either in a cardboard box or a flight case, you would, instead of undoing the stem, you leave that where it is and you just take the sides of the handlebars off, the reverse to what we did when we installed them. It's a pretty easy job. It's 2 bolts on either side. They have to be torqued up to 5 Newton meters, so you technically need a torque wrench with you to do it properly and reassemble it wherever you end up with the bike. The height adjustment, that's incredible. I'm well impressed by that because the amount of people, well, I do it. Most of my bikes I like to have slammed, but I know in the future I'm only going to be able to sell them to a select amount of people who are willing to pay for a second-hand bike which is completely slammed. This, you can ride for a race season, slammed, and then maybe if your bike fit changes or you pass on the bike to someone else, you can just put all the spacers back in.
Again, because this bike is designed to be built at home, it actually arrives with a torque wrench, so you could just stick that in your flight case, and then there's your torque wrench for the other side. Perhaps not the most accurate, but they're at least confident enough in it.
The seat post clamp here came taped up. It says to me, probably will fall inside the frame if you're not careful. It's pretty solid once it's in there. Seat post straight in, T25. That was easy. The seat post expander doesn't fall in the frame easily. The headset spacer adjustability is insanely good. The Torx key being included and slotting in the frame, I mean, you can basically build the whole bike just with that. And add on to that, you can shrink and grow the handlebars to different widths. It's got to be a 10 out of 10. It's blown my mind.
It's impossible to ride that bike slow. Impossible. It really does just force you to give it some beans. I think I've gotten a car analogy for it. I think we'll start doing this more often, comparing bikes to cars. Everyone knows cars, don't they? This is a VW Golf R32. On the surface, completely and utterly boring. But you put your foot down and you have a bloody great time in it. Probably reliable. If something went really badly wrong with it, you're probably in trouble. You're gonna definitely have to buy specialist parts, but you're gonna have a great time whilst it's all working and lovely and hunky-dory.
Bird just hit me. I just hit a bird. Something happened.
It's definitely not as comfortable as other bikes I've ridden, but you would expect that. It's a little bit harsh, but I wouldn't say it's too harsh. It does feel quite twitchy on the back end. I don't know if you found that as well, but the back end on a couple of times when I gave it a bit of beans, it just felt a bit loose on the back, which is a little bit unsettling, but perhaps because they're trying to make this super over the front aggressive bike, that's what they wanted for it. I was surprised. I thought it'd be a bit more planted than that.
Sizing. The sizes range from 2XS all the way up to 2XL. That seems like a pretty good range on paper. But in actual fact, we have an extra small here and it's the right size for us. Not really that small.
The official size chart told me to get a small. We asked friend of Cade Media, Bike Fit James, what size we should order, and we went with an extra small. The extra small for me is perfect, and I'm very thankful we didn't get to the small. It's nice that they do have smaller bikes, but there is this concerning thing with the industry as a whole. Why is the industry trying to sell everyone really long, big bikes? I don't understand it. For context, I am about 170 centimeters, and I like to ride very aggressive bikes.
I'm taller than you by a bit. I would also like an extra small.
If a bike is really, really long, I'm either gonna have to throw myself off the front end of the saddle to compensate for the length, or I'm gonna have to have my arms so far forward that it knackers my neck, it knackers my shoulders. It's so much easier to make a bike longer than it is shorter. So like, it just makes sense for bikes to be smaller, and then people have more options when they then adjust into their fit. So we set these to 30 centimeter wide, center to center on the bar. The shifters are set up as 34 centimeters center to center, which is how it's come. So that means that the standard bar has 5 centimeters of range, so 37 to 42, and then the Aero version of the bar that they've sent us goes from 35 centimeter wide up to 40. So that is mega, mega, mega narrow. That's the sink, it's not my stomach. If it is my stomach, we're gonna have a funny ride home.
Price. They've got a pretty big range of Aeroads. This one's somewhere in the middle. You can go from €10,499 for the SRAM Red model, CFR frame set, so higher end carbon fibre, and a set of zip carbon wheels, right down to €4,199 for the SRAM Rival, still electronic, with lower range carbon wheels and the same frame that we have here. If you convert the €6,499 into pounds, it's about 5.5 grand. I don't know if that's going to translate perfectly when they sell it in the UK. I guess we'll find out today as the bike is released. But it puts it firmly into our Raid the Piggy Bank category. It's the kind of bike that bike racers and real enthusiasts that are interested in performance will be looking at. Being direct to consumer only, they cut out the middleman. There's no bike shops involved. So it means they can get their prices lower, generally, than the other big brands. I think we both agree that this ride's really fun, but the old Aeroad rode really fun. And all the changes are a bit boring. When the most exciting thing about the new bike is the fact that the through axles are now covered up. It's like the Pinarello. Nothing's really changed. So if you have an old Aeroad, is there really much of a reason to buy the new one unless you want even more adjustability in your handlebars? It's the iPhone analogy again, isn't it? You don't have to buy one every single time they release it. If you are going to get one, getting the newest one makes sense. It's going to be the best one. It's also Stormtrooper's bike. Who's this for? Well, it's a racing bike. It's long, it's low, it's aggressive, which means it's going to be suited to flexible, strong cyclists who can tolerate a long position. Of course, if your rides are short, that's going to matter less, but if you do have some long rides planned, consider the geometry. It might also be for the person who wants performance at a really good price. You won't find value like this in many other places, but bear in mind, you need to choose the right fit, the right size, build the bike yourself, and find a mechanic who's willing to work on it if you're not going to do maintenance yourself. If anything does go wrong with the bike, you're going to have to deal with Canyon directly rather than having the convenience of going to a bike shop and saying, fix this now. The Aeroad has ticked all of the boxes in my opinion. The handlebar thing is honestly mind-blowing. I wish all bikes had that much adjustability. It's at a price point which is fantastic, almost unseen anywhere else in the industry. It looks cool, Stormtrooper's bike. It's well up towards God tier. Until you notice one thing. It's got two Canyon bottle cages on. I think they're carbon. Very nice. Canyon bottle. Fits in there, nice and snug. Until you try and put any other bottle inside the cages. Panda Podium bottle. Doesn't fit. Redshift, I think it's a specialized bottle. Doesn't fit. Tailfin bottle. Doesn't fit. Why? So you know what you get for that? It's in the bin.
I do see your point. I like your point, but it is just a bottle cage. It can be changed. Yes, it can also leak into other stuff, which I think Canyon are famous for doing, but I don't think that is fair to this bike. It's great value. It isn't for everyone because it's a really aggressive race bike that, in my opinion, doesn't climb very well. If you live somewhere that's super flat, you're a crit racer, it's a fantastic bike. Most people aren't that. So I am going to increase it because in the bin is not fair. But for me, it's pretty good. Well done, Canyon. You've made a pretty good bike.